The entry-level electric skateboard market is really getting interesting lately, with companies such as Meepo, Backfire and WowGo all offering quality offerings for under $400. Now, I'm not talking about cheapo Amazon boards with a single hub motor at the back. These are all double motor with a combined wattage approaching or sometimes surpassing 1000 watts. In this video, we'll be talking about the Meepo V4s, Meepo's latest entry-level offering, as well as their upcoming replacement, the Meepo V5, which we'll be talking about later on. So the Meepo V4 hadn't been out for long when Meepo released its replacement, the V4s. It was generally very similar, but with a few very important changes. Gone is that crazy box that made the V4 look like a kid's toy. Now it's very understated, very nice. The board too isn't as bright. I quite like a bright board, and I do love orange wheels, which the V4 had. I wouldn't say the V4s is better looking, it's more conservative, just like the box. The biggest obvious difference is that the V4s includes 105mm cloudwheel clones. Personally, I do think this is a nice idea because it means the board is much more suitable now as a commuting tool. Unlike an e-scooter or an e-bike, a skateboard is massively easy to get on a bus or a train, and despite some local laws meaning that they're still illegal to use in some countries, just like e-scooters and electric unicycles, unlike e-scooters, they're much less of a target for police, and unless you're dangerously travelling at breakneck speeds, people are just going to think you're on a particularly fast longboard. By the way, always helmet up, and if you'll be going faster than push bike speeds, don't forget your pads. The cloudwheel copies are really nice, and this board has hub motors in the rear wheels, unlike some boards which use a belt or even gear drive motors. When there's motors inside the wheels like they are on the Meepo V4s, you have the issue of the wheels having to be much harder due to the decreased amount of urethane. Full urethane wheels on electric skateboards are quite squidgy, so despite what you might think about skateboard wheels, that they're really hard, actually they're quite soft. That's how it is on belt drive boards, but not so on hub drives. So having the extra large wheels with the softer surface really suits a hub drive board like this. Whilst I'd never take the V4s fully off-road, the wheels are very much at home over loose gravel, shorter grass, going over bumps and mud. Just remember to jump slightly, going over large bumps, as you could still fall off if you're not careful. Also, whilst wheel bite isn't really a problem, it's certainly there. I didn't realise what was happening at first, and I thought I was managing to find some particularly nasty stones, but at low speeds, if you turn particularly sharply, you can experience wheel bite and you can end up running off the front. Luckily, I only really noticed it at extreme low speeds when I could turn particularly sharply. You're unlikely to turn that sharp and experience wheel bite at faster speeds, unless that is your freaky carving machine, which is kind of unlikely if you're using this board because the 45-degree shredded trucks are really meant for stability rather than carving, not that you can't carve on them. By the way, Meepo do sell some reddish-orange standard wheels suitable for the Meepo V4s, but for the extra money it would be an odd purchase since the whole point of this board is that it has the cloudwheel copies. If you want normal wheels, just get a standard Meepo V4. The tendency towards stability does mean that the board is a really good match to a beginner e-skater. It's a beginner board, but it still has a stated top speed of 28 to 29 miles per hour. And that is fast for someone with little experience to be riding on a piece of wood. It's 8-ply Canadian maple and 1-ply fiberglass, by the way. The change that raised the most eyebrows going from the V4 to the V4s is the decreased wattage of the motors. The V4 had a couple of 620 watt motors, but the V4s has two 540 watt motors. Powerful enough, but obviously quite a bit less than it was before. Now, you may or may not know that larger wheels means less torque because each rotation of the wheel covers more ground, meaning larger wheels are harder to turn than smaller wheels. In reality, the torque of the Meepo V4s feels fine, and I had no problem getting up steep hills that caused problems for my e-bikes.
Oh, it's going well. How's it doing? Gotta watch over conkers. Hello! Slowing down. Come on. I think it's doing a lot better than the bikes.
As far as that top speed is concerned, I've got it to about 28 miles per hour, which is pretty impressive considering that I'm not the lightest. The speed controller is the Ling Yi, which compared to the Hobbywing speed controller found in other boards is generally not as smooth, and previous Meepo V boards would easily throw you off the back if you punched it before you were ready. They've smoothed out the power delivery with the V4, and it's still pretty smooth with the V4s, though still not as smooth as a Hobbywing. One cool feature is that it has a push to start function, so when you turn the remote on, you don't need to turn on the board, just give it a push forward and it springs to life. I will say that the braking modes of the board are fine, just like the speed modes. There's 4. I usually keep it in 2 or 3. Speed mode 1 is totally pointless though unless you're really unsteady and you need to travel slower than walking pace.
That's very slow. Speed 1. Wow. Extremely slow. 4 miles an hour.
So along with the larger wheels and the stable trucks, another reason why the Meepo V4s is probably one of the best boards for beginners is the concave of the deck. The sides really do flare up more than most boards. I personally found it quite comfortable, and one of the reasons people like the concave deck is that it makes it easier to lock your feet into place, and it also makes it easier to know exactly where your feet are without looking at the board. That way you're less likely to accidentally step off the board whilst you're on it. The board itself is of a decent quality, it feels premium and has a nice paint job. However, it would have been nice to have some padded grip tape. It's not totally necessary. The deck has a nice flex, and with these larger wheels it does mean the board is quite a comfortable ride, but, well, padded grip tape is just nice, isn't it? The paint does come off if you don't look after it properly. Mine has rubbed off where the wheel bite occurred, and also when I used a particularly abrasive brush when I was cleaning it after the range test. Speaking of the range, the board comes in two forms. The standard range, which I had, goes for 10 miles or 16 kilometers, or there's an extended range that goes for 18 miles or 29 kilometers. I took the board out on an extreme range test, which consisted of me being driven 7 miles away. The logic being that if I'm 100 kilograms with a backpack and it's a cold day, which it was, a 10-mile board should be able to take me at least 7 miles. Not to ruin the ending, but it did manage over the 7 miles, and I was pretty impressed. However, when pushing the board to higher speeds, the range was much lower. Manufacturers' stated ranges are always in ideal conditions: slow speeds, light riders and warm weather. Overall, I have to say that I am a big fan of this board. I would definitely recommend it to beginners who want to get started in the world of electric skateboards. It's nice that it can go fast if you ever need it, but speed 2 or 3 is absolutely fine for a nice relaxed ride. So, should you buy it? Well, there is that Meepo V5 shaped elephant in the room. Not much is known about the Meepo V5 right now, but there is an Amazon listing that's not quite ready yet. The specs that we know are very similar: 29 miles per hour top speed, similar size, and from the look of it, a similar concave deck profile. Cloudwheel copies may end up being an option, but it seems that this one will revert back to type and sell with standard 90mm wheels. I don't know if the pictures are really what the V5 will look like, but I don't like the way it looks as much as the V4 or the V4s. I think some wheel colours other than black would really help. The big thing you may have noticed is the feature that hasn't been seen on Meepos since the V3, and that is the return of a carry handle built into the board. For some people this will be a blessing because it certainly does make the board much more portable and less awkward to carry. Carrying a board without a handle isn't hard, but it can get a little challenging after a while. Some, however, aren't going to like the way the handle makes it look, and the fact that with a handle the board is going to be ever so slightly weaker. In the end, it all comes down to personal preference. If you like the look of the handle, then wait to see how the V5 turns out when it's released. However, if you want the Cloudwheel copies of the V4s, then go get the V4s now. The V4s is a great board, and even if a new board is released, it's still going to be very usable and a great board. We're not talking about electronics where older models become obsolete. A good board will always remain a good board. At $399, the Meepo V4s is an absolutely astonishing deal. It was in 2022 and it still is in 2023. And no doubt the V5 will be great value too. So do what you want. If you get one of the Meepos or a WowGo or a Backfire, you can't really go wrong. Just get an electric skateboard and enjoy the freedom. It feels great and it's really good for your mental health. So anyway, thanks for getting this far in the video. If you enjoyed it, please hit that thumbs up button, and if you like electric vehicle content, feel free to subscribe too. It is absolutely free. Let us know in the comments if you'll be making an e-skate purchase in future and which board has caught your eye. Or maybe you've just bought one. Which one was it? Let us know. Until next time, ride safe.